And
I knew.
And it just worked.
It was from Babe Station.
Honestly, yeah, yeah. Well, that's the podcast gone tits up already. Straight right. We've looked, and you've spoiled it already now because you've given the game away here. But we have got the blue chip of the industry on today. Mr. Peter Knight is about to join us. He's dialing in from the.
What gave it away, Simon?
It was the Nigella Knighty sandwich, which I know is your particular predilection.
So it's worth mentioning that Nigella is definitely onto me, isn't she?
Why? Because she clicked like on one of your things.
She liked one of my posts, which for me is a huge milestone that we've achieved this week.
She recognises you're one of her biggest customers.
Biggest pound for pound. Now, and I've got here the gorgeous, the delectable Mr. Knight. And that's not just because he's on the show today. I always have a picture of Peter Knight on my...
You're fairly obsessed, aren't you? It's a bit of a misery. He's going to wake up one morning, like on Do It For Don, with you just above him, hobbling him. That was, by the way, that was the...
I was wondering what that was. I love Knighty. I wonder what he's up to today. We're going to find out, aren't we?
I imagine him phoning. He's going to contact us from his Moonraker base, don't you? Above and away from all of this.
A mountain opens up.
Gold Knighty. Na, na, na.
Breaking news.
Oh, yeah.
So are we on now? Is this podcast in motion? Right, fantastic. This is how we roll. Welcome to the 9th episode of the...
All right, just stop you there. I'm stopping there. I'm bored of that numbering system. I was looking at it yesterday. We're going to renumber it so that we're sequential, because that's quite important, because quite soon we're going to catch up on the Estate Agency podcast. I'm a petty and vindictive man
Okay, so if we add, did we do 6 in the first season?
Yeah, 6, yeah.
And 9, we've done 9. So 9 and 6 is what, Simon?
27.
So that's it, 32 episodes.
30 Diane Abbott. Right, okay. Wait. Before you remember, this is royalty now. You behave here in the right... So he doesn't like to be touched, so none of that. Be deferential.
That's not what I've heard.
Be deferential and just don't look directly at him.
I won't look directly at him.
Oh, fucking hell. Jewish mafia. To the Jews.
Isn't she lovely?
I think I am right.
Isn't she beautiful?
Every day we're going to have you like moulding clay, the face of somebody.
Hello.
Is it me you're looking for?
So, for the record, we've now offended Jews, women, and blind people.
No, that's not right. No. The Jewish thing was actually a question, and I answered myself. Famously, they were involved, or your people were involved, with the organised crime in America, wasn't it? To a large degree.
Yeah. Maya Lansky, very, very proud to be involved in organised crime.
So you live in Salford, so on a lesser level.
Salford is the home of disorganised crime.
Yeah. Have you seen any? Down here in Disbury, it's wonderful. There's just
So I bumped into somebody the other week.
He's here. He's here.
Who's here? Who?
What do you mean? Who's here? Can you not see him?
Hey!
Hey! Look at that on message, Mr. Knight.
What can I tell you? I've just actually been out for a long walk, wearing my Kerfuffle merch, and unfortunately, there's no one else out there to see it. So it was David. What can I tell you?
When I go out for a walk, I take this with me, Peter.
Oh, David.
This brings a whole new. I've got to apologise, but he's obsessed with you.
Big fan. I'm a big fan of all your work.
It's reciprocated. It's very much reciprocated.
And Peter, what I've got here is this is where my certificate should have gone for my EA Masters. But you know what? Maybe next year, eh?
Well, why not? Why not indeed? And I'm sure that actually next year is going to be quite challenging for all concerned, isn't it? With I don't think we'll be doing the mystery shop exercise during this current season somehow. I think that would be a bit pointless right now, but there you are.
Yeah. With that, actually, first of all, thanks very much for joining us. I know how many of these you're doing, and we'll come on to that a little bit later. But do you want to give us just a bit of an update as you understand it about EA Masters? Because obviously, as you know, I get a little bit obsessed about conferences, and yours are always at the very top of that list. What do you understand is going to be the? I mean, it's a moving picture, isn't it? But what do you think? Is it going to be okay for that date, or?
Well, I mean, we're working on the basis that we can only deal with the known quantities. We can only control the controllables. So at the moment, there's no reason why we shouldn't be able to go ahead in October as planned, and that's what we're working towards. Now, if events change, dear boy, events. If events change, we'll have to change and accommodate. And but we're working on the basis that it's we're full steam ahead, and we're gonna just crack on with it as normal.
To be fair, we're all going to be going peculiar if we're still like this, aren't we? I would imagine that events like yours, Peter, you're going to see quite an unbottling of tension, and people are going to be pretty pleased to get out, aren't they? By then, it's going to be.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting actually. One of the things Josh just said this morning on the webinar we did was how we're going to adapt and change as a consequence of what we're going through at this moment in time. So if you remember last year, we had a couple of people join us by video link, and I think we're going to be doing a lot more of that sort of thing. It will become more normal, and actually what that enables us to do is to open things up so much more to an international audience and to more international speakers. Because when you look at an international speaker for an event like ours, they don't travel EasyJet or Ryanair. I mean, Mr. Phegan is sort of. I can occasionally get away with business class on Emirates, but he really does like turning fully left. Yeah. I always remember Alexander Phillips's riders when Alexander came and spoke to us. And I said to him, well, we'll fly you over business class, and we'll put you up in a really, nice hotel for 3 or 4 days. And he said, no, Peter, he said, let me just tell you how it is. He said, whenever I travel to Europe, it's first class. It's only Etihad or Emirates. That's it, first class. Oh, and I have only one hotel when I'm in London. It's Claridge's. And I was as he was saying this, I'm googling rooms at Claridge's, right? And I'm thinking it ain't the cheapest standard single, right?
If you're looking for more economical speakers, as long as there's a National Express service running, I'll jump on a bus any day.
Excellent stuff.
You're going to stay where Lenny Henry advises, aren't you, David?
Yeah. But the thing is this, I mean, not in all seriousness, you're looking at costs upwards of 10 grand just to get them into the country and so on. So, the great thing is, I think that people now are accepting and getting used to a video and getting used to, seeing things from online and what have you. So I think these habits will be positive ones, and what it will enable us to do is to put on an even more comprehensive event. And so at the moment we're full steam ahead. Everything is going on plan. If we have to change our plans, we have to change our plans. But I'm refusing to put our whole lives on hold during this. I'm working on the basis that it's just a case of when we get back to normal, not if we get back to normal. So let's plan for it, and if we have to adjust, we adjust.
Yeah. You were far more eloquent about it as always than I was, but it strikes me that there's a different demographics at the moment. We've got agents at the moment who quite understandably are caught in the headlamps, and they are, they're cutting staff, they're cutting suppliers. There's no. It feels like there's no way out. Frankly, there's going to be no way we can really help those people until obviously the situation improves, or we can keep giving them information that isn't quite as black as people imagine. There are those agents then as well, though, that actually don't take it sitting down, are they? And not to be over the top about this, but they do see certain opportunities, and they're going to make the best that they can possibly can of what has been forced upon them.
Simon, David, we're seeing the best of people, we're seeing the worst of people. These sorts of situations bring out all different characteristics, and I can bracket people into certain categories. There are those at the moment who are still not accepting the situation. People who are there are some agents out there who actually think this is just affecting a state agency. And the one thing about it is affecting every single person in the country pretty much. I mean, unless you're a loo roll manufacturer, right, or hand sanitizer business, right, where you're probably punching the air every day, going, "Oh, bring this on! This is amazing! This is amazing." Unless you're in something really obscure like that, every single business, every single individual is affected, not just estate agents. And some of them, I'm afraid, are, as you say, rabbits in the headlight, just not dealing with reality. And some of them are being, quite frankly, absolute arseholes, if that's not too inelegant a word.
You're on the right show, Peter.
Well, I thought so. I thought I'd moderate, adjust.
An opportunity for me to get one of these then, eh?
Yeah, absolutely. I just thought, sometimes some of the suppliers, Simon, you know this particularly, suppliers talk in the same way that the agents talk. There are supplier forums as well, and some agents are behaving appallingly. Now, on the flip side, there are people behaving amazingly well as well, right? There are some absolutely phenomenal people. And what I'm so excited about is working with those people who really want to re-engineer their businesses and looking forward and being positive. So people are at different stages and behaving in different ways. Luckily, the majority of people are now moving into a place where they're accepting their reality and then asking the question, okay, what can I do going forward? And that's where we can do some good work with them.
Control the controllables, isn't it?
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. What you didn't know there, probably, Pete, was, and you wouldn't know this because it was on the second podcast where only 7 people listened to it, was that David's missus became incredibly innovative, and she turned your kitchen into a hand sanitizer factory, didn't she?
She did indeed. She's adapting, and that's the message. The agents that are adapting at the moment. So there's some people that are doing virtual viewings. Chris Watkin released a whole load of content on how to teach your vendors, educate your vendors on how to do a virtual viewing themselves, or even to take photos themselves, which in itself is a bit of a skill to get it right. And those agents that are trying to do that, they're still tying up sales even this week. Now, obviously, we've had the news that the government are largely advising people to put things on hold, which I've got to say from a health point of view is quite helpful. At least it sort of states the obvious that we all knew. But I think if you can adapt and if you can offer face-to-face, I mean, I've never spoken so much on video calls this week with either my team, or I don't think I've seen my team so much as I have this week, but or even with vendors. So if you face-to-face on that, and actually we never made that leap into doing it on a regular basis, but it's a much more human way of dealing with one another if we can actually see each other's reactions. So after all this is over, if we carry that forward, that innovation, maybe actually when you do call a vendor to update them on the progress of a sale, or just to keep in touch with them and see how they're doing, a video chat is probably much more productive than a normal telephone conversation.
Totally agree, David. I mean, this is going to be a very much our way of communicating going forward. It's a training program for it, really. We're going to have several weeks of this. We're going to get more and more comfortable with it. We're going to learn to look into the camera rather than look into the screen and all the above, and get better and better at it. I know, it's brilliant. And become proficient in this, and we'll get the technology to help us to make it even better. And so on. I have to say, I love the fact that Josh Phegan's got a complete branded back wall in his home, which I think is just extraordinary. I mean, as you can see, I've only got half of one in mine, and I'm going to be adding another one over the weekend to really complete the look, because I have back wall envy now of Mr. Phegan. But no, in all seriousness, we're going to use this technology more and more. But let me just conclude on that point, if I can, about the way different people are behaving, because I think ultimately, what is going to happen when we come out of this is people will remember, right? People will remember how people have acted in this situation. And therefore, it's a fantastic opportunity for us as employers to look after our teams properly. It's a fantastic opportunity to look after our clients properly and be there for them, and our local communities. And you just have to look at people like Matt Nichol, people like Spencer Lawrence, and many, many others who are doing some extraordinary things with their communities and helping and making a difference. I mentioned several suppliers. I know what you guys are doing, Simon, is brilliant with all of the suppliers that you're working with and agents and so on. People. There are some good guys out there, right? And the good guys, good guys dressed in black, clearly, David. And we're going to see after this a massive swell, I think, of goodwill and affection to those who were the good guys during these times. And Whaley, I mentioned this to you the other day. I know you picked up on it. This is just a deferment, right? The income is going to be here, right? I know there's cash flow problems, and I really do appreciate that. Crikey, I'm down to my last tin of foie gras. It's really tough at the moment, and
I'm glad you said that.
That's the
soundbite we were looking for, Sam.
Actually, before you came on, we imagined you coming out of some Moonraker-esque base. So you've just confirmed our best thoughts there.
But I think what's interesting is that we touched on this in the last episode, that agents assume that suppliers don't have families to feed as well, and that in some way, because we've had to pay out to suppliers over the years, if we keep that vision of suppliers as somebody that are against us rather than for us, I think it's very unfair. I think one supplier in particular, and we're not going to mention them here just in case anybody's got particularly close alliances with them, but one supplier in particular has learned a lesson in PR and how to foster maybe better relationships with agents so that this doesn't happen again, because I don't think there was anything. Yes, the offer was perhaps derisory in the way that it was worded.
I think we've narrowed down who that is, David.
Maybe.
I think we have to work that one out. Yeah.
But I think it would have been, if anybody else had done it, it would have been received well. I think it would have been seen as a sort of a step in the right direction. I think the fact that the relationship perhaps had become frayed over the years, I think that's probably what changed the balance. But if you were to disregard that particular supplier because their profits are a matter of public record, but everybody else, there's some fantastic companies out there, suppliers who we've had conversations with. We haven't asked them to do anything, but obviously they're volunteering this information. They think they're reasonably priced. They've all got families to feed as well. And the message is, look, we'll support you as much as we can remotely. Let's just try and pull through this together.
I think I've been really disappointed in a couple of areas there, is that, that element that they feel like the suppliers have to go through as much pain or perceived as much pain as themselves. And secondly, when these guys are being really good and are coming forwards and being proactive, don't just see that as an opening offer to then go and beat them up any further. I think we know the biggest one of all there, the vast majority of these people now are all losing money, and a lot of the deals they're trying to get, every time they offer you a 25% or whatever the deal is, that's cutting back their margins, and is the same conversation as you're having about getting rid of a constructing member of staff. So yeah. It's not, or again, it's just to say everyone's in the same boat, and I truly believe we get through this together.
I think that's right, Simon and David. I mean, look, I'll name the elephant in the room. Rightmove, I know, have apologised for. They know they've cocked it up. They know they got it wrong, and the irony is that what they actually have come back with. Had they come out with that straight away from the beginning, I think agents would have had a real turnaround. And, I'll be really direct here because I just feel like I'm able to on the Kerfuffle Podcast, because it's just, well, why not?
The only forum for this.
Exactly. I mean, I'm just adapting to the brand. My sense is that there are some absolute idiot agents out there at the moment who are, crusading away. And by the way, they should just look at what's happened to those who've done it before. And, they're no longer agents, most of them, because they start fighting crusades that seem to be pointless. You've got to worry about your own business at the moment and making sure it gets through. And a 75% discount, is as good as it gets from anybody. And actually, poorly managed. They know that. They wish they'd done it differently.
They apologised.
They did, and they've got it right now, as far as I'm concerned. And and agents are in a position to do that. Look at the government support. And again, I know that I'm on a podcast with one of the more politically charged individuals in the industry. But I think they're playing a blinder at the moment. And again, you've got people online, ranting and raving about the politics and all that. It's just like, hang on a second. Just look at the economic measures that are being put into place, and and what is being done actually for business and indeed for individuals across. I think they're doing as good a job as you could expect them to do.
Yeah, very
so
true.
Therefore, what we've got to do is focus on what we can do. And you're right, David. There are a lot of suppliers out there. I'm having as many conversations with suppliers, well, not almost as many as with suppliers as I am with agents. And they're worried about their families, and they're worried. And a lot of them, of course, fall into an awkward category from a self-employed position, where they make more than 50 grand a year, right? Fair enough. They make more than 50 grand a year profits. They're not eligible for the self-employed scheme. There are a lot of people that we know who fall between the cracks in terms of the help the government is giving for the majority, and they fall, some of them in and they're being beaten up. Now against that, as I say, I think Rightmove have done the right thing in terms of their offer now. Lots of other suppliers are doing the same thing. Some of them, though, I don't know what margins people think that suppliers are operating on. A 25% cut, a 40% cut. I mean, do they just think that they've just got a big pot of cash somewhere that's sitting there?
The problem is, Peter, the minute you put technology in there, that is people's perception. Oh, they're just sat on a money factory, and that's always going to be the place. So, people like, my dear old company, and no one's going to feel particularly sorry for, again, these multi-million pounds. But the truth of the matter is, if there aren't 75%, we lose 75% of the staff out there, those licenses drop proportionally directly for there, and they lose 75% revenue. Now, these are big companies, and hopefully over time they've got their rainy day funds, but it's as simple as that. So you do need to be positive. What I wanted to talk about, though, Peter, if that's all right, is a couple of things that you mentioned politics there, and of course we do have a little politics corner here. But I'm going to tie it back as well, first and foremost. Have you heard the news that our glorious leader Boris has actually got coronavirus?
I haven't heard that news. Right? Is that right?
It's a Whaley exclusion, and of course, there's no.
I think some of the best people have coronavirus. Is that not true?
Well, I was going to get onto it. So Peter, I mean, the truth of the matter is you've literally just recovered from it, haven't you? In terms of you.
Yeah, I mean, I somewhat. It's funny, isn't it, with hindsight? I went skiing in Switzerland and went to Zermatt, which is next door to a resort in Italy, and in fact, you can ski backwards and forwards. And so we didn't actually ski into Italy, but I'm sure that several Italians skied over. Anyway, whatever. I came back from a ski trip feeling a little bit feverish, feeling a bit run down, a nasty cough. And do you know what? Actually, that's quite normal when I go away with 12 blokes on a ski trip to feel like that. In fact, I've had ski trips where I felt that the after effects have been a lot worse. And so initially, I just put it down to, right, well, that was a pretty good session with the boys, and there you are. And then Sarah said to me, my other half, Sarah said to me, I've got you the shed prepared for your self-isolation when you get back. And I went, she goes, well, you just don't know, do you? Have you got it or not? And so I thought, well, actually, I better take the medicine just in case. And of course, as you know, the frustrating thing is you can't go and get yourself checked on this, right? So you don't know whether you've got it or you haven't got it. So you take sensible precautions. So I self-isolated for 2 weeks, and Sarah got it. Now, the difference is I got it relatively mildly. I got flu, man flu probably, and felt a bit rubbish for a few days, and a bit of a cough, bit of a fever, but nothing more. She's been shockingly bad. I mean, in bed for a week, non-stop coughing. I mean, what happens is, for her anyway, every time she gets to one position, she can maintain it, and then she moves or takes a glass of water, the coughing starts and can last for 2 hours or more non-stop, which of course affects sleep, and it's tiring, it's debilitating, which of course aggravates to it, and so on and so forth. And so she's had it really, really badly. And she's out of it now. She's fine. Still got a bit of a cough, but fever's gone, and so on. So
she said in a text message, Pete, I think the thing that hit me was she said she's feeling a bit better now, but she said, it was about day 12 when it broke. And of course, yeah. The problem is, and this is why it's really important, I wanted to talk to you about it, is we see all this stuff obviously on the news, but very few of us actually know people that have been through it and done it. And that's why, and it's this weird thing, isn't it, about different people, and as you said, living next door to each other, having different experiences with it.
Yeah, very much so. I mean, look, if everybody was to get it in the way that I got it, quite frankly, that idea of let the herd get it in one hit, quite frankly, would make sense. And it was mild. It was nothing that big a deal. Certainly, we wouldn't be talking about it on the podcast, I can assure you. But Sarah's condition, I mean, if my 92-year-old stepfather was to contract it and experience the symptoms that Sarah experienced. Yeah. Or my 80-year-old mum. My mum's 80 this year, and she's not particularly in great health. I'm not being funny. It's not. It would be extremely serious for them. And so I cannot emphasise enough how important it is to self-isolate and to protect people, because it's so easy to look. If Prince Charles and Boris have both got it, I mean, it's clearly not discriminatory, is it? In terms of social status or anything else, it's everywhere.
You've got to stay away from all those butlers. That's probably one of
oh, don't get me started.
Harsh life, it's swings and roundabouts. But anyway, I think you're going back to the problem is when you think about the lethality rate, the death rate, and it's like 1%, 2% here, and you think those numbers, you think, yeah, okay. But then you go into that older demographic, and then it becomes 15 or 20% of a chance. And you'd be thinking if that was a game of chance, I fancy my odds there. It becomes very different, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. And I think, look, ultimately, I'm taking a view, which is that, the famous Karen on Facebook, who's, suddenly gone from, being a full-time mum and selling part-time bath bombs into a full-time expert on all matters economic, statistical, medical, and so on. I'm ignoring all of these people who are self-styling as experts. I'm taking the government's advice for better or for worse, and I'm putting my trust in the chief medical officer, and I think they're doing a blinding job in terms of communications, by the way, with that broadcast every evening.
Yeah.
And I think they broadly are doing. I genuinely believe they're doing what they believe is best. Okay, we'll have the post-mortem afterwards and see whether that was right or not. But I think they're doing what they think is best, and therefore follow the advice. It's very simple. Let's self-isolate. And those estate agents that refuse to close their offices and also, quite frankly, it's disgraceful and ridiculous, and they should be embarrassed.
You think that's like that sort of that false macho machismo thing where it's like you've got to be the last person in the office late at night or keeping your doors open?
I think there's an element of that. I just also think there's a lot of greed, quite frankly, coming into play here, and nothing
callous disregard for human life as well.
Yeah.
I think when you talk about the government's briefing, it teaches us all a sort of a lesson in communication, because I think more information and the ability to ask questions is probably better than none. Yeah. So, Peter, what sort of advice would you be giving to agents right now? Because obviously their marketing message is pretty much on hold. It's we can't claim it's business as normal. What message should they be putting out there to their clients?
Well, I think David, it's about being helpful at this time. So Josh Phegan was suggesting earlier today on the webinar, he said, look, if it was what he'd be doing, and I agree with him completely, is making contact with all of your clients, calling all of your landlords, all of your tenants, all of your registered buyers and all of your sellers, and just saying, how are you? How's it going? What is the situation? And then asking those who are in the process on the sales side in particular, whether they're buying or selling, just say to them, look, when this is over, do you still want to move?
Yeah.
And if they reply in the positive, which I'm sure the majority will, then okay, let's talk about what we can actually do during this period of time. Yeah. So, if you've been ahead of the curve, you've done your videos, you've got all the great photographs, you've got all the marketing materials. If you haven't, as you rightly say, David, Christopher Watkins is doing some extraordinary work for people. His video series, I think, is absolutely first class. He's doing, typically generous, giving out so much content.
The sheer volume and quality of that content is, I mean, for somebody to have owned that, and I don't think there's any secret, he will have looked to have seen what Josh was doing those years ago when he's come out. But Chris really is a genuine asset and resource to the industry now, who on the face of it, and I will find out there's got to be some skullduggery somewhere. It's seemingly doing it without needing to make money in the way that I avariciously would do.
Well, I think it's playing a longer game. I go back to this idea, Whaley, about deferring the income rather than it being lost. Okay, right? Just look at it. And again, I accept. There might be some people watching this thinking, "Oh, it's all right for you saying this. You're okay." Well, actually, no. I'm drawing on personal reserves. I've cut my salary to zero. Right? I'm not taking anything. And I'm living off personal reserves. And by the way, they're not unlimited.
Sorry, I'm just overcome with emotion here.
Yeah. I know. But the point I'm trying to make here is, we're all tightening our belts in every way we can. So I've put a cash flow together that enables me to carry on doing the work that I do and the team does for the foreseeable future, by dramatically cutting costs, which is easy because I can't go out, I can't go anywhere. So that's fairly simple.
And I can see your taste in hatware has gone down.
No, I'll tell you, when it comes to clothing, all free merch is massively appreciated. And I wore my Starbury hat the other day, and I've got a good supply of Moneypenny socks and all sorts of things. So all merch happily accepted and worn and and promoted. But seriously, what agents can do at the moment is have those conversations with their clients and get them ready for when the market returns, and the market will return. And so you can start sending to buyers these video clips, having conversations with them. Look, it's got to be when it's appropriate, all right? If people are still in crisis mode, if they're still in shock mode, then don't bother having conversations with them about the future.
And by the way, some people are feeling that, aren't they? I've heard a lot of people who are trying to do gentle prospecting, but people are just saying, what the fuck are you phoning us for at the moment? You've just got to be appreciative that for some people now is just not the time at all, isn't it?
Completely.
It's very hard to get it right.
But the time is now to phone them up and just say, how are you? Is there anything I can do? And people like Spencer at Paramount, and Matt Nicol and others who are organising assistance in their local communities, basically making sure that shopping is being done. I mean, Dale Norton yesterday, there's an old couple in Dale's village who Dale and Maria and his family have sort of taken under their wing to look after them during this period. And Dale's out at Waitrose yesterday, queuing up, in the morning to go and do their shopping for them because they can't get there themselves. I mean, this is what we're going to see. I think when we come out of this is, communities unite like never before. People talking to each other and genuinely, when they say how are you, they actually mean it, as opposed to.
To be fair, you can never say this is the perfect tonic, but is exactly what was needed in the way that the country was split over Brexit, isn't it? It's hard to see anything else, that can unify like this going forwards. Peter, you just spoke about there you mentioned the podcast. I think it's really worthwhile us talking about, obviously, the Property Academy, because you are doing some. I mean, I've obviously been a member. I can't remember how many years I've been a member, but certainly I've always been the biggest fan and advocate for it. You've obviously changed the approach. So for people who don't know, Property Academy was very much a place for groups of agents and indeed suppliers to get together, share their challenges, hear from professional speakers that they probably wouldn't, hire themselves because of the cost there, and get constructive feedback and strategies from the academy on how to help run their businesses. You're pivoting, obviously, that now very cleverly, obviously, as people are having to do these and have been running these sessions this week. Do you want to just give us a bit of background about?
Yeah, thank you, Simon. Thank you. And I think it's 12 years you've been a member, mate. So what can I tell you? It's certainly over 10. Look, our purpose is to inspire people to fulfill their potential. That's why we exist. That's what we seek to do. And the way we do it, of course, needs to be able to adapt to the circumstances. So peer group learning, getting 10, 12 business owners in a room together 6 times a year, typically, who don't compete, to work together to improve each other's businesses with the pursuit of mutual benefit, is, I still think, the best way of learning and the best way of actually developing yourself and developing a business. we can't do that now. So, we have to revert to other mediums. And, for all that this sort of technology has to offer, and it offers a lot, it's not as good. But we're all getting better at it. So we're doing more and more of these. And in fact, next week, we've got a whole series of webinars planned. This week we've had 7. We're probably going to have a similar number next week. We're getting our speakers to come and contribute. Sorry?
That's a lot of content. I mean,
a massive amount of content, and it's really valuable. I mean, some of the speakers that we've got are quite extraordinary. So, we had Dale Norton, I mentioned yesterday, Josh Phegan this morning. We've got people like Peter Rollings going to join us, David Pollock going to join us, and some other real legends from the state agency, together with speakers in the business sense. So our view is that we want to be useful. Now, look, people are at different stages. So I've got people who are still at that sort of shock stage. We need to put an arm around them and see what we can do to get them moved on. We've then got people who are in a sort of a paralyzed state of, I don't know what to do. So we've got to move them on. We've then got people who've now moved to what I call acceptance. They've come through the curve, and they're at a point where they can actually go, right, I'm now at acceptance. Okay, so we now need to get them into planning mode. And then you've got those in planning mode, and they need to get into what Josh calls opportunity mode, because we've got different people at different phases of this. And we're working with them individually and collectively to get them, to navigate them through each of the phases and to get them to a place where hopefully they can start to plan their business. And this is the exciting thing about this. I've said this several times now, but I used to say to people, wouldn't it be amazing if you could hit pause on your business, like a video recorder, hit pause and get everything sorted out, get the people sorted out, the systems sorted out, the processes sorted out, get all your marketing sorted out and everything else. Yeah. And then when you've got it all sorted out, you hit play, but actually you hit play and fast forward at the same time, and you speed past where you would have been had you just been hitting play. And they all look at me in the past and they go, yeah, that's a great idea, Pete. Really lovely in theory, but that's just not the reality, mate. We've still got a business to run. And I'm saying to people at the moment, what's happened at the moment is, I'm afraid somebody has hit the pause button for us, right? Yeah. Pause has been hit. And okay, so you can do several things. You always have options, right? You can sit back, as I mentioned on the podcast earlier this morning, you can eat your body weight in crisps and watch Netflix all day long. And there is an appeal to that, I'm sure, for some people. Yeah. I'm not mentioning any names.
I mean, Peter, if you're more or less finished, Sandra and I have got the rest of our Netflix season to watch.
Well, funny enough, David, I was thinking about you because I do watch some Netflix, and Dale Norton turned me into Friday night dinners.
Oh yeah, well, yeah. There you go. It's Friday night.
And it did make me think of you, I have to say. I thought has Minty been watching this? Because, anyway, so you've got that option. You've got that option, or you can say, I'm probably pissing a number of people off. I don't mind being on Mike. You can say what an opportunity this is to get stuff done. And I've just made a list of all the things that I want to get done for the business, all the things I want to get done at home, and I'm just working through that list in terms of the most important things first, and then working my way down. And depending on how long it goes on for, I might have a tidy sock drawer in 4 months' time, because it does need sorting.
Sorry, I massively misunderstood you. I thought we were finally finding a use for all those Money Benny and Yondell socks. Yeah. I was going to say though, Peter, that really it is. You would be kicking yourselves if when we come out the other side there, you hadn't taken advantage of, none of us wanted this, all goes without saying, but to do those projects that have been sat in that to-do tray for however many years.
Exactly that, Simon. And also the training opportunity, the learning opportunity, the opportunity to read, the opportunity to watch those podcasts or listen to these podcasts, the opportunity to actually, do research into your business and indeed stuff, not just business either. The opportunity to expand your mind into other areas and to learn. I mean, again, some amazing individuals. I had an online sort of brief conversation with Sam Jones and Moneypenny earlier this morning, and my daughter had showed me a photograph. She's got a jigsaw, like one of these impossible to finish jigsaws that she's going to work on as a sort of a bit of a distraction. And Sam said to me, she'd done the same. She's bought a jigsaw of the world, and to teach her kids geography and have a. I'm thinking, well, that's clever, isn't it? That's a smart thing to do during this period of time. Just one example of how people can actually turn the negative into a positive. And I know that sounds trite a bit and a bit easy said, but actually, if you stop and put your mind to it, you can create things to do during this period of time that will stand you in great stead afterwards. And there's no excuse not to. I mean, if we are going to be locked down, Josh was reckoning that it's about 100. He reckons about 120 days, and he reckons that therefore we're into UK probably about day 40 or so from when this started here. So we've got 80 days to go, let's say, of lockdown. I have no idea, by the way. Nobody does, but so 80. If we've got 80 more days of this, so first things, of course, can you cash flow your way through 80 days? If you can't, then there's a problem. You've got to get that sorted one way or another. But let's just, for a moment, imagine you've got that sorted. And as I said, Dale spent a lot of time yesterday talking about what needs to happen with that. Okay, you've got it sorted. It's painful, but you've got it sorted. Right. What are you going to do in the next 80 days? What can you do in terms of your business? What can you do in terms of personal? What can you do in terms of the different dimensions? Mental, emotional, physical, spiritual, social. One of those. The full indivisible life. Yeah. What aspects can you be working on? I'm having more conversations with family than I've had for a long time, and as opposed to sometimes on the phone to my mum thinking, oh, come on, mum, get on with it. Now I'm actually able to spend a bit of time having a proper chat to her. And, I had a chat with my brother and my sister-in-law the other day, which probably an hour and a half conversation. We haven't had an hour and a half conversation in 10 years. And there's lots of great things that are coming out of it. I mean, do I miss seeing my daughter? Desperately. I can't wait to see her and get a big hug at the end of all of this. But you know what? We can WhatsApp chat and we can have chit chats and stuff. It's different, but there are ways around it.
Life will find a way, as they said famously in Jurassic Park. Didn't they?
Yeah, I'm sure. So look, I'm taking the view that this is an opportunity, and turn it into a positive and make the most of it. I don't. To be frank, what else is there to do? What else can you do, right? Get pissed. I mean, I'll probably do that a couple of times.
Didn't Josh say this morning? He was talking about it, didn't he? He says, "Look, I could have put my business on hold, couldn't he? Basically, just gone off, driven my bike off into the sunset for a while, let it clear here." But he said, "That's not what I want to do, is it? I enjoy this."
It's funny though, because when he said that, I actually was on a Zoom call with him when he had that moment, and because we coach each other a lot. We people have
Batman
asked.
and Robin.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I am the Batman. And he we support each other, and I was with him when he had that wobble. It was like, what do you think, mate? And look, I'm not going to pretend to you that I haven't had some moments as well. Of course I have. I've been doubting what's going to happen. Crikey, my business is all about live events and live interaction with people and so on. And suddenly, bang, all of that's just gone. Okay, you have a wobble, and then after you've had a wobble, you dust yourself off and you just go, right, what have I got to do to get through this? And then once you accept the situation, you actually see it for what it is, and you can see the positives there. So, I'm excited now because I've got some people who I'm working with about building a new look estate agency business, and honestly, I'm seeing that we're going to. I think that things like online auctions. Our friends, SDL, for example. I know you had Louise on here recently. I think that the opportunities for businesses like those is extraordinary.
Now's the chance for you to pick and choose without any sort of bias, isn't it? The best bits that you genuinely want to do. So we've hammered them for years, the online agents, whilst at the same time loving some of their technology and all the rest of it there. Not going too close towards it though, because of course that was what Purple Bricks did. Now the rules, there just are no rules, are they? You can sit down, it's all broken. Create something that works for you in your image and your client's image as well, what they want.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that's frustrating, Simon, about not being able to go to New York, because we were looking at the whole program was called CX 4.0.
Yeah.
And that was based on the idea that there have been 4 stages of customer experience. 1.0, by the way, there's lots of iterations. You can have 1.1, 1.2, et cetera, But 1.0 at its most basic was you just went to the local store to buy stuff, and if they had stuff, you bought it, and if they didn't, you didn't, or you substituted. Your customer experience was based on availability. 2.0 started around the 1950s, and that's where brands started. Basically, television, Madison Avenue, all of the branded goods came into play, and people started to make their choice based around brand loyalty and so on. And that was a sort of a 2.0 where you suddenly you could buy different products and people became aware of them. 3.0, of course, is where the web started, and all of a sudden the world opened up and became a single marketplace, and that changed everything again in terms of how it is. But I think that we've had 4.0, and I think 4.0 is with us now, and I think actually this crisis is going to accelerate 4.0. And 4.0 sort of has 3 sort of almost paradoxes to it. So on the one hand, I think 4.0 is that people want consistency, but they want it to be individually tailored.
Yeah.
So you want it superbly consistent, but you want it to be individual. They also want it to be functional, right? So in other words, it's got to, but they want it to be uplifting. Yeah. And just being functional itself is not sufficient now. It needs to be uplifting in terms of that. And then the third one, which is a bit of a hackneyed phrase, and I'll probably try and come up with something a bit better. Now I've got the time to think of something a bit better. But it's proactive versus reactive. And what I mean by that is there's only ever one excuse to have to be reactive. And that's if you've never experienced it before. If you've experienced it, then to quote another Australian who I've worked with over the years, mate, if you're going to do it again or think you're going to do it again, make a system for it. And I really feel that those 3 elements are going to be the sort of foundation of what I call customer experience 4.0. Now, what I'm looking to do with our members and indeed anybody else that I can help, right, is to help them to craft their own CX 4.0. What's it going to look like from their business perspective? What does the Kerfuffle 4.0 look like? What does the Norby & Co 4.0 look like? What does the Property Academy 4.0 look like? How do you mentioned pivot. How do we pivot around the situation to deliver this new level of customer experience? And then what do we need? And here's the simple solution, if you want a summary of a solution, right? It's a combination of tech and people, where tech does the heavy lifting. Yeah. So if you look at that functional bit, and if you look at the consistency bit, and if you look at the actual, if you like, the response to the reactive, in other words, the delivery piece, that's going to be tech-based for the most part, in my opinion. Now, all the other stuff, the individual bit and the uplifting bit and the proactive bit, that's going to come from individual. That's going to come from people.
That's still the relationship game.
100%. So, what you've got to do is free brilliant people up to be individual and uplifting and proactive. And the way you do that is to deploy the right technologies to deliver the consistent day-to-day activities of the business, which, by the way, will be delivered more effectively through good tech, through appropriate tech, than it will be done through people, because people are inconsistent. Even great people are inconsistent. Great people have bad days. Great people have holidays. Great people are off. Whereas, great tech will just consistently deliver. And what we've got to do is make sure that our app stack, as it were, our tech stack is appropriate. I know this is where what you're doing, Simon, is helping people to design the right tech stack. So they've got the right pieces together to deliver. And some of it is bespoke stuff, and some of it is just off the shelf stuff that's available. WhatsApp as an example is
you're doing the stack, the organized stack. Whereas what I think we recognise has happened in most businesses, naturally, loads of reasons why, it's more like Jenga, to be honest. And if you put one piece out, the whole thing crumbles down, doesn't it? So things like Repick bringing out this pass system, I know all the other guys have as Res have their open API, MRI do, A2S. It's really important that this glue starts to bring together a cohesive picture of all of these suppliers so that it matches the ideologies of the company as well. It has to match the character of the company, doesn't it?
So I think, first of all, Simon, you design the service, right? You design the service delivery. What's it going to look like? And then you say, right, what tech do I need to deliver that service? What people do I need to deliver on that service? And it's about, and this is where we've got the time to do it. And we've got the time to stop and say, okay, what's that going to look like? And then we can have conversations with suppliers, because you know what? They're sitting at home and they would love to give you a full demo and help you to work out what the stuff is.
I've had a policy for a while now, really, when looking at this. I don't believe that anything other than the market appraisal process can't be outsourced. That doesn't mean that it should be outsourced, but I think any agent in a good market, or certainly in the market now, should just be very honestly looking at every element of their business, looking and scoring themselves how well they do each part of the process. If they aren't doing it well, look at improving them, how they do it in-house, or looking at an outsourced opportunity if it's economical. And as I said, but owning that market appraisal place, so you are doing, as you used to say, the rock star appraisals and everything else, to deliver, the most important part of it.
Simon, I call them sterling behaviours. The Australians call them dollar productive behaviours. There's only 4, and there's only ever been 4 things that make you money. Prospecting, listing, negotiating, selling, and keeping a deal together. Those are the 4 things, right? And the everything else is just stuff. Those are the 4 things that make you money. And that's what we've got to sort of start, engineering the business around. But I think what we're going to find is that agents need to redefine their purpose. And again, I've said this so many times. I'm probably boring all your audience. But moving from the transactional to the trusted status. We talked a moment ago, touched on some of those agents, who are still sort of, I'm still in the office, look at us, and all that bullshit, right? They're still in transactional, they're still very heavily transactionally focused, whereas the best agents have really woken up to the idea that it's all about actually being part of their communities, being, it's funny, I've lived in several parts of London over the years, and elsewhere for that matter. I mean, I can claim my northern roots, really strongly.
He's just a common lad from Manchester.
I am, exactly that. And what can I I know we haven't yet talked about football, but I'm hoping that we are going to, because, the team in Manchester I support still has all the trophies and probably will still have them all at the end of the season. Remarkable. But
I think we now keep this European one, don't we? Because that's been delayed.
Yeah. Well, I think that's fair. Yeah, you keep that. We'll keep the others. We'll keep the other 4, and that's a deal. We'll take that. But no, in all seriousness, I've seen situations, all over the country, all sorts of different agents. When I travel back to where I used to live and so on, I go down high streets. And the high streets are just unrecognisable. Where did that shop go? What happened to the library? What happened there? But I'll tell you what's consistent is the estate agents. Yeah. They're still there. I mean, I saw the other day that David Nunes and Nigel Favas, who bought out several of the Your Move and Reed's Rains brands. I was really pleased to see that. And I couldn't believe that Reed's Rains would have closed Wilmslow office. I mean, that was one of the big flagship offices. Yeah. And I remember going for meetings there. Well, I remember being summoned there for a bollocking, actually, when I was a junior neg and not performing appropriately, whatever that might have been. But no, I mean, my whole career, I'm thinking that office can't go. That's one of their sort of, and they've bought it out and they've kept it going. And I hope it will get through this period for them. The point I'm making is, though, estate agents are part of the fabric of communities, right? They're there for a long, long time. Good ones are anyway. And this is the opportunity that we've got to move ourselves into this helpful phase, which is why right now, contacting every single owner and saying to them, look, if you get any major property maintenance issues, if you have any problems during this period, you can call on us and we can help connect you with the right contractor through our property management service and so on. Now, I've been saying to people to be doing this anyway as a matter of course. So not just prospecting, hello, thinking of selling, that's just rubbish. Instead, having a situation where it's, hello, can I help you? Oh, by the way, just to let you know, we've got a full range of contractors absolutely available to all of our clients at the moment. They're trusted, they're vetted by us, they're really top people, they're available for emergencies. So if you do get a problem, then you can pick the phone up to us.
I can never say the word, your Caldini's reciprocity. I did manage to get it out there, but it's that classic something, isn't it? Give something to get something back.
Yeah, but it's giving something without the intent. So Gialdini, just to get it correct, Bob was up there.
You made
Bob. And I don't know if I told you, but his wife is called Bobby, so it's really confusing. She's actually Bobette. So you've got Bob and Bobette. I mean, it is a bit weird. And there was a bit of a toss up as to who's had more work done at the moment. Because I saw him the other day, and he was looking like he was auditioning for a revamp of the Thunderbirds. But but he's a brilliant individual, and I take the piss. You can only take the piss out of people you love, as well. That's a regular thing for us. But seriously, Bob Gialdini had this very brilliant idea around the 6 principles of persuasion, one of them being reciprocity, or as we British say, reciprocation, dear chap. But the key is not doing it with the intent. What Gialdini calls a bungler is somebody who does it, on the basis of, I'll tell you what, mate, I'll do this for you, and then you do this for me. That's not reciprocation. Reciprocation is giving without condition, without charging, without doing it, just giving, knowing, right, that the universal principles that I mentioned earlier, the foundational principles, the natural laws of life, right, will result in you getting paid a dividend. There's that wonderful story which I told about this subject of Ethiopia and Mexico. And I always remember that, if it was Bob Gialdini who told me this story, where if you remember during the Ethiopian famine in the early 80s, 84 I think it was, and of course we all remember Live Aid and Band Aid and all the amazing work that people like Bob Geldof and others did. But at the same time, there was also a crisis in Mexico, and there was an earthquake, and over 200,000 people lost their homes, and many thousands were killed during that. And the world didn't ignore them, but the world was so preoccupied by the famine in Ethiopia that it didn't get the attention it would otherwise have had, perhaps. So the first country to send aid to Mexico in that situation was America, which is, their neighbours, and despite the current president wanting to sort of put a barrier up with the neighbours, there's a lot of Mexican folk in America, so it's understandable that they were the first. The second country to send aid to Mexico was Ethiopia.
No way.
And they sent a massive amount of aid over. And at the time, people looked at it and thought, well, is this a sort of a, we're in it together type of thing? We're working on this together. But actually, no, it goes back further than that, and it goes back to the 1930s. And what was happening in the 1930s is, as Nazi Germany was basically land grabbing all over the place, so too was Mussolini. And Mussolini, on the basis that all the best bits have been nabbed by Hitler already, Mussolini was left to go, foraging around in certain parts of Eastern Africa, which included what is now known as Ethiopia. And back in those days, I mean, they were doing some atrocious things, gassing people and so on. And the first country to send aid, right, into what is now Ethiopia at that time was Mexico. And they sent them arms, and they sent them aid, and they'd never. And here's the thing, David. What I love about this story is the debt. This is back to reciprocation. right, the debt was eventually repaid. The Ethiopians had been waiting for a moment to thank the Mexican people for their support. And they had to wait 40 years, more than that, what I'm talking about. Yeah, they had to wait, 40 odd years for it to happen. But it did happen. And today you've got squares in Addis Ababa, which are named after Mexican place marks. There are tube stations which are named after. There's a massive synergy between the two countries. I mean, why on earth you wouldn't imagine those two being connected? But they were connected by the fact that they looked after each other as best as they were able to in times of trouble. And people have long memories, right? People will remember acts of kindness, acts of generosity. They will remember people who cared for them during these times. And they will feel, a lot of them will want to repay, because it's a human condition. If somebody does something for you, you want to repay it. I get thank you cards sometimes. It's this weird thing. Oh, thank you. No, thank you. Oh, thank you. No, thank you. It's like, when do you stop?
See, this is why this guy's a class act, Simon. I told you, we've name-checked Mussolini, Hitler, Ethiopia, Bob Geldof. It doesn't get more eclectic than this. This is superb.
I think Peter, on that point of thanks, we have to say thank you to you. You've been incredibly generous.
Yeah.
I'm very honoured. I'm very honoured to eventually have made it onto the podcast, and thank you for having me. And
if any of our listeners out there want one of these autographed by Peter from confinement,
you want that signed, don't you? That's what you said. So it's good. At least you got the lipstick off it from the last time. That's the one. See that? No, Peter.
Peter going to go and have a little rest now.
If anyone wants to find out about the Academy, of course, just go Google on there. I can't talk strongly enough about it. It's great at any time. It's invaluable now. Peter, I will be very much looking forward to your show. There's going to be a bit of pent-up excitement when we go out there. Thanks very much, and I'm glad to see you back on your feet.
Yeah,
thanks, Peter.
David, Simon, thank you very much indeed for having me, and look after yourselves and keep up the great work. Well done.
Wow.
See you. Bye now.
So, David, I mean, that's pretty amazing, isn't it?
That was actually pretty good. That was pretty good. He managed to pull that back in after starting. I was, skiing in Zermatt and.
You're just
out with the lads.
You lose the bitterness, David. I told you. If I'm welcoming you into my world, this is the shit you have to do.
No, honestly, that is superb. I don't think you could get more value out of Peter.
Yeah,
I think superb.
Whenever I see Peter's skill set, it's there's lots of other people that are great businessmen and great storytellers and things like that. But Peter and Josh to a degree as well are one of those that. They don't just bring you stuff from this industry, do you? They are the best at looking outside of this industry and almost translating it into why it's relevant for a state agency or real estate if you're in Australia. And that's a godsend, that is, because then you'll never get too far behind the curve, do you, of what's going on? Because I think we can all be a little bit guilty of sometimes just thinking that a state agency is the be all and end all.
It clearly isn't, right? It's being with your family and putting up with
and weren't you impressed that I avoided saying, obviously after the Boris news, that this is the real Boris bounce?
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, baby!
That's all we've got time for today.
Good.
We're going to be coming back at you next week.
Yeah. We talk about who we got on next week.
Yeah.
We've got Glyn Trott. Glyn Trott's going to be giving us 50 wonderful tips. I think it's 50. He's going to have to make some more up now if he hasn't done them. Tips for this marketplace. So that's from Agent OS. Great to see him on. We were meant to have John Hanford on, but I kind of fucked up the timings. So John's going to join us as well from Fine and Country, which will be fantastic to understand. He's under severe lockdown because he does have some weird underlying health condition, which I assume is not just him being a United fan. So he's going to be joining us. So it's going to be quite a bubbly week next week. We're going to kick off another one on Monday.
Fantastic. Yeah, we will do with Glyn Trott, I believe. And we'll be talking to you all then.
Well, look forward to having a really exciting weekend. What plans have you got, David?
Do you know what? I'm just going to stay in. Maybe just...
Yeah. I've had a bit of a tough week now. Well, message me if you want anything.
Listen, if Nigella gets in touch, I'll give her your best.
Disgusting. Good job, my friend.
All right, take care.
I'm fuming! I want a McDonald's!